And this is KPCW FM, your short guide to the Sundance Film Festival. For tonight, the hottest ticket in town has got to be the premiere of David Lynch's Lost Highway. Bill Pullman and Patricia Arquette star in this dark thriller about desperate men and faithless women doomed.
This idea popped in his head that was about a couple who kept receiving videotapes just dropped on their doorstep. The videotapes were of them in their house at night, sleeping.
Nothing ever happened to it, and for 4 years when I told the same thing to Barry Gifford, and it was that thing that kind of got us, you know, going to write the screenplay.
David called up, and he said, "Barry, we've got to write a movie." So I said, "Okay, but, you know, I'm working on this new novel right now. I can't really do it now." He said, "No, Barry, we have to write a movie, and we have to do it now." So I said, "Well, I'm not going anywhere." He said, "Stay right there. I'm coming up."
They kind of were initially talking about a completely different idea, and two different ideas, Barry's and David's, and they hated each other's ideas, and then David came up or told Barry the story of this idea.
When you have two guys writing, usually one guy walks around the room, the other guy sits at the typewriter or the computer now. But David and I are both the guy who walks around the room. So we had to sort of avoid bumping into one another, and to avoid bumping into one another, we wound up sitting opposite and talking, and basically I was writing it down. I don't think I've ever met a more affable person than David Lynch. From the very first, David and I have gotten along extremely well. He's had a policy, of course, he never likes to have the writer around. Certainly, you know, not on the set or standing next to him while he directs. He actually invites me to do this. He's incredibly generous in this way.
Some things work that you've done in the script.
Cut it. Good going, you guys.
And some things don't, or somebody does something and it's better than the script, and so you always have to keep watching for things and be open to new ideas, and at the same time think about this blueprint and not get, you know, off on tangents that won't, you know, that'll kill you later.
You want to film Tonight, Deepak?
Yeah.
You have to sign these checks.
All right, here we go. Okay, now you are not going to give these checks away, right? Okay, I make the budget. I make the schedule. The crew needs to stick to the budget and stick to the schedule. You don't even buy a pencil in this office without me knowing about it.
Like, films to him are puzzles, and with money, time, personnel, like a kind of like a general.
I control every single aspect of the filmmaking process, not creatively, but as far as financially is concerned. As they say, the buck stops here.
I have been wrong before.
Okay.
What can I just look at? Can I just do it in two? Do I have to hear all the reasons why I can't?
And you walk up to him and you tell him lies. You say you can't have this, or you say it's great, David, you can do this, or you do everything that you can to keeping the best interest of the movie in line, and also making sure that it's done for the amount of money that you have.
He has unlimited energy and enthusiasm, and he's a schemer.
They're looking for a commitment from me now, and we're going to put ourselves in a position where you're not going to like it. You can turn around and say, why the hell did you agree to it if you weren't comfortable with it?
This puts us in a bad spot, because we want to be nice, but we don't want to be, you know, stupid.
He is very closely informed by me where we are heading. He keeps me very closely informed of what he needs and why he needs it. And a little bit of sacrifice from my end and a little bit of sacrifice from his end, and we've got a great show here.
It's the same really kind of tone as the other. So the whole key is, you know.
Okay, that's the song playing in there. It's like these are in groups of threes, like 1, 2, 3, and then there's a break, 4, 5, 6, a break, and then the chorus. It's kind of cold. Cold and warm. The chorus is kind of warm.
So she sings and plays violin at the same time?
This, I don't think she does.
She sings and then she does an instrumental violin. And
Sure does, yeah.
But for her to sing on that track, she has to sing in the stratosphere.
Beautiful.
Started playing the fiddle when I was 6. My grandfather was a Scottish fiddler.
David just has this tremendous feeling for music. He's got great ears, and he hears everything. He hears all the little inner voices. He hears everything you're doing. Artie, stop. On this, because of the register, you know, it's like now like a fatter sound, and there's a lot of like.
You want to have her back on? Angelo inspires me, and I inspire Angelo by talking and nodding and making gestures.
So maybe she should back off.
Well,
Just a touch.
Okay, but she's going to back up for the high part. This is
Right.
it's so nice up close like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to hear back a little bit? It's okay. It's a little fatter sound, which could be effective.
Yeah,
No,
I
we
think
can
it's
get that
nice,
done.
Ange.
All right, let her do one.
Angelo locks into the thing, and then goes till that's, you know, exhausted.
So it's 4 of the same, and 1 slightly up, and then 4 of the same.
Yeah, but it's in a pattern of 3, 3, and 3.
Right.
But you got to play the other
Yeah,
things
well,
with it. So he like finds it, then, you know, builds on it, and make a piece. Some pieces are short, some pieces are long, but they all live within this certain thing that's found.
Pretty nice, David.
The beginning dictates, you know, the direction, and you never know where it's going to end up. But the mood is something that you're looking for, and somehow we always, you know, find it. But it takes a kind of a strange dialogue and action and reaction with the music Angelo's playing to get there.
And it just goes out.
closer. That's right.
That's
That's
soft
right.
and
Not
warm.
very nice.
Take a breath here and hold it.
And just fade. And you know, maybe we can. We don't have to. It's a long, long tag. You know,
Right, yeah,
So you can go back and grab a couple of the other endings. When I was little, in Spokane, Washington, I drew all the time, and my father would bring paper home, and I mostly drew Browning automatic water-cooled submachine guns. That was a favorite.
When I met David, we were both working at a drugstore. He was driving prescriptions around, delivering prescriptions, and I was working at the soda fountain. And one day I remember talking to him and saying, "Wyatt, I wish I could be a painter." And he said he wished he could be a painter, and just hearing that one other person in the world was thinking about painting made the whole thing seem real.
Every lunch, Bush's brother David, and who was a draftsman at Holland Engineering, and I would go to your studio on Cameron Street for lunch. And you'd make us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and coffee. Three deckers. And so one day we were over there, and you were pouring coffee. And what worries me is I was drinking it and not noticing anything. But David Keeler said, "Bush, what the hell's wrong with this coffee?"
Right.
And you looked at him.
You were really swilling it
Yeah,
down.
I was swilling it down. And you said, "Nothing's wrong with this coffee. You know, if you don't like it, get out." And David said, "Bush, this coffee tastes terrible. Something is wrong with this coffee." And Bush and I was sort of worried because it was pretty good to me, and Bush was pretty offended, and that ended up going to the percolator, and he took off the top, and there's a bar of lava soap floating, or standing upright at the bottom in this coffee, and a lot of like little suds and stuff. And
Well, it was dirty. I had to clean it.
he left the soap in there. So that story stuck with me. And when Mark Frost and I were writing episode 1, the one after following the pilot of Twin Peaks, that story crept in, and it became a fish, though, instead of a bar of lava soap.
Fellas, don't drink that coffee. You'd never guess. There was a fish in the percolator. Sorry.
Even as a teenager, he was so determined. I mean, he knew what he wanted to do. He had a really strong sense of self, even from young. And he had a studio as a teenager.
And one day he brought in a painting. It was of a dock or a wharf scene. It was kind of greens and blacks and stuff. And it was just like thick with oil. And he was showing it to me and was pretty excited about it. And then this moth flew into the painting, and it got stuck in the thick oil paint. And it started like flapping around, and it made this big spiral, the sort of this death of this moth. And I was thinking that he would take it off and then repaint it and stuff, but he fell in love with it. He said, "This is great," And so from that day on, he started like putting little bugs and stuff in his paintings.
I had a lot of things that I was, collecting. It isn't, morbid to me. It's a texture, pure and simple.
I had about 5 cats, and they would catch these little mice. And sometimes they would catch them and they would die, but they, after they played with them, but they'd be in perfect condition. So David took one of these mice and he took some polyester resin and glued it to a beautiful blue willow china plate. And then I had a piece of fly paper hanging, and there was millions of flies, and they would get onto the paper, and he started like collecting these flies, and someone would die at the windows, for just, I guess, heart attacks and stuff, and he started putting them in a plastic bag. So he had a big bag of dead flies that he was thinking he'd put on his paintings, when he got back to Philadelphia. So he packed all this stuff up after a week, flew back to Philadelphia, but as luck would have it, they lost his suitcase in transit. He was anxious to get back to his house. he went on home. Then he called the airport and said, look, my bag didn't come in. Do you think you could help me find it? And this woman on the other end of the phone said, well, you could describe any of the contents which might make us believe it was yours. And he said, well, there's a plate with a dead mouse on it, and then there's a big plastic bag full of dead flies. And she started laughing, thinking this guy's got a wicked sense of humor. But when she realized that what he was saying was like true, she hung up, and he said about 20 minutes later, this bag arrived at the door, and he just hears the wheels of the car like screeching off. You know? They didn't want to have anything to do with him. Because Philadelphia's got some weird people in it. And they thought that he might be one of them, not knowing how normal David is. I know that David, when he stopped making films, he's painting, and you don't need a crew. You don't need a sound crew. You don't need caterers and craft service and camera and film and everything that costs you money. And David always painted with house paint and roofing tar and cotton and sort of like anything he could find. He still does.
He wanted his paintings to move, is really what it came out of. He wanted his paintings to do more. He wanted them to make sounds. He wanted them to move.
In 1967, I made my first film, which was more of a moving painting than a film.
And he projected it onto the screen, these heads that he animated, which went through all these contortions, and he had little birthday candles stuck on the canvas that he was using, and he lit them, and there was all this these streaks of burning, and then at the very end, all these heads vomited, and that was the end, and then it played over and over again. You know, it was a 1-minute film.
Somebody saw that film and commissioned me to make a similar type of thing that would be like a painting you could turn on and run for a while and then turn off. So after working on this thing for a couple of months and it didn't work, the man who commissioned it said, just take the rest of the money and do whatever you want.
I was home for Christmas, and I slept in the same room with my niece, who I think was about 6. And she had a dream in the middle of the night, a nightmare that and it woke me up. And she was just, this is my niece Sarah, she was just jumping around in bed, reciting the alphabet. A, B, C, D, F, G, A, B, C, D, F, G.
A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C.
I was telling David about this, and his eyes just got as big as saucers. You know, I thought it was an interesting story, but to him right away, this was material.
A, B, C, D, F, G.
He's going to paint the house black, okay, and which he did.
H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P.
Then he set up on the second floor the room that where he shot the scene in the alphabet, which I'm in, where I'm bouncing around the bed.
Now I've said my ABCs, tell me what you think of me.
The films that I really participated in were the first 3.
And that film and a script got me an independent filmmakers grant from the American Film Institute, which was brand new at that time. And that was another thing that changed everything all at once.
He got $5,000, and he again proceeded to paint the inside of the house black.
I wanted to have the rooms black so that you'd see, you know, what was there and not look at the walls.
I was working on films as an art director, and I came back and checked up on my friend David, and he was living at the stables illegally at the American Film Institute.
Well, this is a place where Jack scared Catherine halfway to death one night because he was waiting right around this corner here, and you came through in the Volkswagen, and he leapt out at you. But this
That took a few years off my life.
makes a certain sound when you drive over it. Remember? Remember that sound? We could always tell when someone was coming in.
Yeah.
Oh my
Of course, we were never supposed to be here. Where was the little house?
Right here.
We built it here?
Right here.
That was the door, was right there.
No, that wasn't the door, Catherine. The door was right in here.
I didn't know if you wanted me to come or not. Where have you been? You never come around anymore.
Dinner's almost ready. Come on in.
The planet was out here, and you were out here, Jack, right here.
I was?
Yeah. And it was a night I freaked out, I think, because Fred was taking hair.
It was taking a while because it was very
Yeah.
complicated. Speaking of hair, this right here, I stood and did this, but
That's right. Well, we'll go up to the where the hair was done by Charlotte and Catherine the very first night. It was up here in the hayloft. Uh-oh. This is really bad. This is really bad.
Unsafe. Hell, it was unsafe when we were in here.
We could just kick it in. That would. For 5 years, this was a different world, you know, at least to us. There was Eraserhead, and it was once you got into the mood of it, it wasn't any place that it really existed. It was this Eraserhead world, and it had its own mood, and you could picture the outside world outside the buildings. They were completely different than what was really here. that's our food room right there. And look, they've taken the whole balcony apart.
Oh, man, the food room.
We grew our own potatoes up there.
You know, we started off having...
That's right, we did.
We grew our own potatoes right up there in the balcony.
Jack had a potato farm.
And,
They were the size of your
when we
little fingernail.
harvested them, the potatoes were about the size of little pinto beans. They were little bitty potatoes, pea-taters. You know, little bitty potatoes, but a bunch of them. You know, we took them home and
Did you fry them up?
we made little bitty French fries.
Remember we were just going to have snacks?
Well, we normally did about one shot a night. And both Fred and Herb were painstaking. And we found our what do you call it, rhythm. You know, like after a film's going for a couple of years, you sort of find your rhythm. And it kind of slowed down to 1 or 2 shots a night, depending on, like a master shot would definitely be lighting all night. And Jack and I would rehearse every move. Jack was like the most expert actor I've ever, worked with. He would go into minute detail on our move.
This is that big dolly track.
That's where the planet was, right there. And
This is that Elmac on the dolly.
all it was straight in, Catherine. It was straight in.
I was there all day, and I, pulling levers, and it was hard work. So he started like painting this plastic stuff on my face and making sores because he asked me to play a man in the planet. It looked great, but it wasn't removable. I sort of did a combination of soaking and scraping and shaving, and I think about 3 days later, my face was clean shaven and free of all the makeup of that film.
Never talk about the baby, ever.
The baby was born here,
Nearby.
but this is where all the scenes were shot.
Right upstairs here.
I remember getting very angry with the baby when it spit at me.
And it shows, too.
Remember when Jan was about 3, she would come over and ask if she could play with the baby, and you'd say, yeah, but don't touch it?
Spike has a special place in my heart, very definitely. Whether it's because of my own feelings of Spike sort of representing the nightmare my father thought parenthood would be at that point, or who knows, but just I think there's a very sort of sweet elephant man type quality to the baby.
Spike, yeah. Jack named him Spike.
Jack named him Spike.
We had to change that baby.
Yeah. Well, it rose for a while, and then it went down for a while. But Jack always used to say it might as well just be a sock with a couple of buttons.
That was about the time that Mel Brooks hired him to do Elephant Man, and then his life changed.
Came into the office. When he came in, I looked beyond him. I thought that maybe this kid that came in was a messenger or something, because he wore a little leather jacket, and I'll never forget his shirt was always buttoned. He always wore kind of a white shirt. One of the first to do this insane thing. It was always buttoned here. It was kind of weird. No tie, just a shirt, buttoned. And he sat, and he had a lot of R's. said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir." A lot of R's, like a Midwestern kid. Scared me. I expected to meet a young Max Reinhardt. I expected the guy to have, like Picasso, 2 eyes on one side of his nose. And here is a young Charles Lindbergh. He looked just like Charles Lindbergh. He says, "We just have to move things because I have to think about directing it. Not, not the screenplay, but the movie." Good talk. So I said, "You're hired." I hired him right then and there.
I've known him obviously as a movie director and as a writer and all sorts of different things. And I've admired his work. And so when the Turner Cohn Gallery put up a show of his photographs, I was curious. Lynch's style is difficult to, I think, pinpoint. It's a combination of the sexiness of them, the glamour of them, the seductiveness of them. It's sort of wonderful, traditional glamour photography / nude photography or erotic photography, but with an edge that I've never seen before, a dark edge, a noir edge, if you will. It's scopophilic. It's the lust to look and to stare at things that you wouldn't normally be caught staring at.
Well, mostly I like it. I'm especially excited about the paintings on paper, which I call it a tensile strength. And I'd seen at least part of the work that he'd shown at James Corcoran a couple of years ago. And I found the one thing I wanted from that work was a kind of more distinct structure. And it's exactly what I get in these. And I find them really, really exciting to look at.
People do many different things. And this is some of the different things that I do.
You're not forced to be an artist being his son or daughter, but not only because he is one, but as you see how much he loves it, it sort of draws you towards there to express yourself, and not only express yourself, but to see if you like it more than in a household with a lawyer, maybe. And you get a chance to say, well, you like it or you don't, but because he's an artist himself, you get more of a chance to try things out and stuff like that.
And also, I think both of us, a lot of the time we spend, the majority of our time with Dad is in the garage making stuff or on the set working or painting or, building little things out of clay. I think my favorite public appearance of his, though, was Jay Leno, where he had sort of rigged this clay head, mouth agape, and it was hollowed out inside, and then he stuffed it with turkey and cheese and took photographs of the ants slowly devouring the innards of this head.
I had ants in my kitchen. Ants. And they're little small, what they call, I think, sugar ants, but they were coming in, I think, for water. Mm-hmm. And I made a small head of cheese and turkey.
You carved a head out of?
No, I put a ball of cheese and turkey together and encased it with clay. Mm-hmm. And mounted it on a small coat hanger. Mm-hmm. And I made an opening in the mouth. I exposed some turkey, and I exposed some turkey in the eye and in the ears.
So the ants would...
Now the ants found the coat hanger, began climbing, and for 4 days and nights, nonstop, they emptied the entire head of turkey and cheese.
Wouldn't it be easier just to spray?
He's an ant wrangler. He's a doggone ant wrangler.
I am an ant wrangler, and ants are, as we all know, tireless, workers. So if you get a project that they can do, they'll do it. And there's no questions asked. No unions.
To this day, an ant in the kitchen is escorted outside and put in a safe place.
Yes.
I'm not sure what it's called. It may be meat as a face with a bird and a rat. And it's a slab of roast beef that I was sort of hoping would get some action with decaying and possibly some, maggots. But right now it's just alive with these little ants. I like the organic textures of it. And it needs to be looked at just like anything else. The ants were doing fine. They didn't hurt anything. But I had a whole section of maggots that was lifted one night by somebody, some animal.
For him, the doing is the joy. Sure, the product is, important, but he's very inspiring to me because the act of creating is what he so cherishes, and I think that makes every day and everything you make more important.
Luckily, David is able to vent everything through his art, because otherwise somebody might be dead.
Might be a little too far over there. Okay. Many of the things that you subconsciously use in painting, you use in film. But I don't think about it so much as feel it.
Nerd! Hey!
What do you want?
Husband. My head.
Hey.
Production design is its mood, it's things that have to be correct, dictated by the script.
Creating the prison, for example, the death row prison. Now here's a prime example of how the director and the production designer work. When we scouted that place, it's a fire station building. And you walk into that place and you say to yourself, somebody's lost their mind. They want to shoot a death row prison at this place. I mean, we all have our own imagination of what death row should look like. I mean, death row is death row, as we all know to be. And then they build the sets, and you arrive there the very first day of the shoot, and it's phenomenal. It looks beautiful. It's death row, and yet it's not a death row. It's a David Lynch death row, which is what he wanted.
I collaborate with Patty the same way with everybody else, and it's a process of getting everybody tuned in to the same thing. I've worked with Patty since The Elephant Man. She knows by now things I like, and we talk a lot and look at photos or drawings or, whatever it takes to get the idea, and then next thing I know, it's there. Patty does not like to be photographed.
You can roll tape. You can roll tape. Patty, come and sit. Hold on a second. Get me a chair here. Patty, you're going to sit here with me.
I don't talk to Patty very much about wardrobe. Patty just has got she always comes up with, the best stuff you can imagine.
Here is Fred's shirt that he wore during the morphing process. Then here's the suit that he wore while he was in prison. Pete's section, his garage, which is a vintage herringbone suit that we went with. Mr. Eddie. Mr. Eddie is a very kind of classy guy, wearing silk ties, silk shirts, boss suits. Then we have Andy, who is our, I guess, one of our resident porno guys. Great t-shirt made out of a football jersey fabric, faux vinyl alligator shirt. Not much blue in this movie. They had decided, Patricia and David, not to use blue. Our cops are just, ties, shirts, much like cops are. Renee's wardrobe, a lot of lingerie. Her silhouette is very long. Her shoes are very high and platformed, all to give a longer, leaner silhouette. Then here's Alice. Again, a lot of lingerie. And her silhouette is shorter, sassier. again with very high shoes, but a little bit more body showing.
I think you're out a little bit more. You're kind of against the wall, but out this way.
Once the production designer has set this most beautiful thing, the DP has to give justification to it and not just shoot close-ups and have some wide shots so you can see the scope of the design of the production to get the production value, as we call it. You know, it's where the creativity comes into play and you create a look.
I think what distinguishes David from other directors is that his imagination runs wild, and he creates a mood on screen and he creates a mood on the set that people work in. I've never seen a crew so happy to work for a director before. We spend more time on scenes without dialogue a lot of times than scenes with dialogue. Okay, so you want to take him to 26?
And have him whack Mr. Eddie, who isn't there.
And just opens the door, lights are on
We'll
already.
put an ironing board there and, you know, pound it.
He knows in his head exactly how he wants it to go, how he wants it to be acted. Not necessarily how he wants it to be shot, but he certainly conveys that.
Peter listens to some music while he's, you know, operating, because the way the music is, you just, you know, just operate, you know, a certain perfect way. And then you can check to see if the scene is working by the music that you picked. I listen to music, and ideas sometimes come to me. All different kinds of music can kick it in. When it happens, a whole character or a whole scene or a whole mood, visual sort of mood comes in with the music, and then that music becomes extremely important. One of the characters, Fred Madison, plays the sax, but it's more the saxophone solo that's the real important thing. It's just got to be insane.
Sax guys, sex guys, sex gods. Sax players have a different relationship to women. There's something about the way your mouth is on the instrument and your connection is to the instrument. It looks like you're cheating. I don't have to play it. All I have to do is sell it.
Got it?
Excellent work.
This is show business. This is not, you know, accuracy business. I've got the experience that David created the music for, which is that it starts somewhat melodic and it goes berserk. It goes fierce. It goes reptilian brain.
He's a kind of a regular guy, and he's smart, and he could be someone in trouble, a lot of trouble.
Part of the reason I did this movie was that I have a serious phobia about nudity, just in my general everyday life. You know, I've spent most of my life taking baths in the dark.
She kind of had to do things in this picture that were always seemed pretty difficult.
I want you. When I'd have to do scenes with men, he would take them off beforehand, and I don't know what he said to them, but I would come in and they would look at me differently. They would look at me like, I'm sorry, I'm looking at you. I feel for you. I know this is hard for you, you know. So there was a lot of humanity on the set.
She never complained. She was always there, completely, you know, raring to go.
But I would cry in between takes and lay on the ground. I called David Satan one day, and he didn't like that. And I didn't really mean it, but, you know, it's heartbreaking. It's a very vulnerable thing.
Question.
You feel David in his movies. It's another universe he takes you to.
Action!
like an alternate reality. It's close enough to our own to be really disturbing.
Everything is beautiful. But a couple of shots, when you kneel down and you're looking up at Mr. Eddie and the touch and the close-up of you, I didn't think we could top that first shot of you, the first close-up.
Oh, good.
So beautiful. Really.
Good. There's nothing strange about him. I mean, he's not abnormal or kooky or cuckoo or, I mean, he has a very distinct all-American moral code.
I sort of feel like I'm that guy on This Old House, We're going to go down to the shop, and I'm going to start working on this table for Fred Madison's house. That's the leg, and that's the tabletop. You got to have the right tool for the job, and that's like always been a frustration, because I don't think you ever have all the right stuff. I wish I could build everything, but it would take forever, like Eraserhead took. But I'm a frustrated builder, and I really love, being in the shop. Time it just disappears. Nature is a guide to, making, everything. Like there's slow areas and there's fast areas. Like blank wall is the slow area. I always talk about this duck. The proportions of a duck are all, working, and the textures are all working in a certain way. They got big feathers on the body, and you can't put big feathers on the head. It would be completely wrong. They got to be little bitty feathers there. And the bill has got to be a certain length, and the bill relates to the feet in some of the texture and coloring. And then the feathers curve down in this S-curve into a huge big body with a soft, it's slow area. And the eye of the duck is the fastest area and can only be put right there, like a little gleaming jewel. It couldn't be stuck in the body, it would get lost. And it couldn't be stuck on the leg. It'd be two speedy things next to each other. And, it'd just be a joke.
David loves innocence. David loves evil versus naivete. And he understands the human condition. And he understands it like Braque and Picasso. And he's like Seurat. David paints in strange globs and dots. If you get way back, yay, it's a movie. But you got to get way back. You got to get an overview of it, because if you're in the middle of it, all you'll see is globs of paint, unconnected. You won't see the brilliant patterns that are in his soul.
I find him to be incredibly balanced as a director. He inspires trust from the actor, which I think, with the emotional stuff or the sexual stuff, you want to trust your director and feel safe with them, and he really cultivates that.
That's nice. Yeah, but do some moves where you pull apart, you pull yourselves, where you can have your hands together, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
The whole idea is not to impose my will, but, the characters are out there, and they have to be a certain way. And when everybody tunes into that, then they bring all the stuff inside them, just right for that character. Sometimes it happens real fast. Sometimes they come in knowing already that way. Sometimes, Dean Stockwell playing Ben in Blue Velvet was, like way better Ben than was written.
When I first read the script of Blue Velvet, to be perfectly honest, I loved everything about it except the character that David was asking me to do.
Drink up. Here's to your health. Let's drink some. Let's drink.
But here was a role in a story, in a screenplay that was totally incredible, and bananas, and off the wall, and courageous, and inventive, and marvelous, and wonderful, and sick, and bizarre, and all these things. I thought it was great.
Here's the bear.
It seemed to me that the real pivotal character in the film was Frank Booth.
Here's the Ben.
Here's the Ben.
Be polite.
Who subsequently was Dennis Hopper.
Here's the Ben.
I know Dennis real well, so I had a good idea how he was going to approach Frank Booth, and I knew that Frank was going to be an all-time film antagonist. An all-timer.
What are these?
This character, Ben, read that he was the one individual that this Frank seemed to gravitate toward and look up to, and even be in awe of in some respect. So it just seemed to add up 2 and 2 is 4 that Ben had to be weirder than Frank, and farther out if possible. So I put out my farther out cap and came up with the character that I did.
I wanted to do Blue Velvet from the moment I read that script. I was dying to play the role that Dennis Hopper played. And I thought I would test for it, whatever, or try to convince him. And I didn't know David. Joanna Ray was there, so I waited and waited and waited, and it was like 3 hours or so went by at this very hot afternoon in the valley, and I got meaner than a junkyard dog. I mean, I was really pissed. And when David got there, I can't really tell you, other than I blew my fuse. And there was a lap dissolve of quite a few years. And I remember Bill Pullman mentioning Lost Highways. I said, well, there's not a rat's ass chance that I'm going to be in that play because David Lynch has got to, remember that happening and not want a damn thing to do with me. But paradoxically, I think my berserk meanness or junkyard dog, ferocious, rabid attitude made me what David had in mind for Mr. Eddie.
Robert, when you come in, don't come in this far. Come in like front tires right on this thing and center it right up and just like you own the place.
Hey, Pete! Pete! Where's Pete?
Mr. Eddie.
In the 40 years I've been doing movies, 40 plus, there are a handful of directors that stand out as filmmakers.
Prettier than a picture.
I'll just mention one that David is certainly in league with, and that's John Huston. When we did Preetzi's Honor, I was very aware of feeling like I was in the lap of Abraham.
You got 2 good takes. And that's damn good. It's damn good. What did it feel like to you?
He really works with the actors. I mean, that's what he's great at, besides the visual aspects, which obviously he's amazing at, is he really knows how to pull the things out of the actors.
It's better to start from a friendly place, because in a little while, you're going to be, wanting to kill him.
Am I going too fast?
No. No, you're not.
That's good.
No, you're not going too fast.
Okay.
And then the thing is, like, you know, that energy is, you know, it drives it.
All right, then let me go with it. Let me go one more time.
Okay, you bet.
Maybe I should drive it more.
Okay, drive it a little more.
What happened? Somebody giving you trouble?
No, no trouble.
Because if somebody's giving you trouble, Pete, I can take care of the problem. Like that.
No, I'm fine, Mr. Eddie.
I mean it, Pete. Like that.
Thank you, really, I'm fine. So, what do you want, just a regular tune-up?
I want you to take a ride with me. I don't like the sound of something.
Okay, I gotta check it with the boss.
It's okay with Arnie. Come on, let's go.
He treats everybody equally, and it really makes a difference on the set, you know. Everybody's here because they want to be, you know. Sure, people could leave and go do something else, and, you know, some bigger movie, more money, but it's not about that, you know.
David likes to portray himself as the straightest guy on earth, an innocent, a naive. He's neither of those things.
Action!
He's very complex, very complicated, obsessive. He has a great, corny sense of humor.
Okay, now what happened to that tire?
That's probably saved his life.
You find the problem?
It made a beautiful noise. And there was a bunch of air that shot out. It was like, made a big explosion. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I did. I took the limo over the curb and flattened the tire. But what the hell?
Previously on Twin Peaks.
She's dead. Wrapped in plastic.
Laura Palmer. I always say, anybody knows how the Twin Peaks Bob came about happening. You know, I was there when that happened. It was just a set decorator who was hiding behind the chair. And, you know, we did our shot, and Sean was his name. Sean Doyle was the operator, and he said, no, it's not good for me, David. I saw Frank De Silva hiding behind the with the sofa. And David said, that's it, perfect. We got it.
In matters of money, Deepak is never wrong. But in this case, Deepak is completely and totally wrong. And he's taught the story completely wrong. Frank Silva was the set decorator. And we were shooting in Laura Palmer's bedroom. And Frank was moving furniture around. And somebody said, a woman said, Frank, don't lock yourself in that room, because he had just moved a chest of drawers in front of the door. And I wasn't even looking in that direction, but the image of Frank locked in that room popped into my head. And I rushed to Frank, and I said, Frank, are you an actor? And he said, why, I happen to, yes, happen to be. And I said, you're going to be in this movie. And he said, fantastic. And so I had Frank hide on one pan shot across Laura Palmer's bedroom, freeze down by the bars of the bed, and just be looking right at the camera. And we shot that. And I didn't know what I was going to use it for, no idea at all. We kept shooting in Laura Palmer's house, and that night we were shooting one of the last thing in the house. Mrs. Palmer's tormented on the couch, smoking a cigarette, and scenes are playing back in her head, and suddenly she sees something in her mind, bolts upright, and screams. Sean Doyle, he got that right, and tilts up and captures the scream perfectly. And I said, fantastic. And Sean says, no, it's not fantastic. I said, Sean, what is the matter? He said, someone was reflected in the mirror. I said, who was reflected in the mirror? And he said, Frank Silva was reflected in the mirror. And that's when I knew that Frank was part of the scene.
David is a person who kind of relishes in mistakes, you know, that you make. Technical mistakes, whatever they are, he'll kind of use those and go even farther.
The whole thing is an idea. And ideas are the best things going. And ideas are somewhere, there's all the ideas. And they're sitting there, and once in a while, one will come bobbing up. And the idea is made known suddenly. From someplace it was, and now it's in your conscious mind, and it's like a spark. And something is seen and known and felt all at once, and along with it comes a burst of enthusiasm, and like you fall in love with it. It's like an excitement that comes with it, like a spark. Fate plays the biggest part in this whole, business. And it's really sort of unbelievable that you could get ideas and someone could give you money to make a film. Okay, when you finish, it's been a pleasure talking to you. You go up the stairs, and like you're gonna go to the middle of the curve, like that landing.
It really is magic.
Up there, and your back is to the fireplace.
The ears and the strangeness and all that. And he said, that's lovely. You won't have to act at all. I said, you're right. Just like that. And it was over. And we danced.
We've met before, haven't we? I don't think so. Where was it you think we met?
At your house, don't you remember?
No, I don't. Are you sure?
Of course. As a matter of fact, I'm there right now. I don't want to go play another cop. I don't want to do all that junk. I've wasted 99% of my life in front of the box doing nonsense. So it's nice to feel like an artist and to be around artists and work on that level.
We're considering, you've got girls here that, professional strippers, that are already paid to be, exposed, so that we can have some pretty racy stuff going on if you think that's appropriate.
Back in the late 60s, during the 70s, I was living in Topanga Canyon. There were a lot of people into individually making films. And every once in a while, I would have some showings of 16mm films at my house in Topanga Canyon. Now, David Lynch came through there and showed a film, one of his early films. Later on, it turned out that I had totally forgotten this, that I had met David or that I had seen this film, until I saw the film again some 20 years later. It's called The Grandmother. Speed the reel ahead, years go by. I'm having a hell of a time finding work of any sort. My career is in the puddle. I got a call from an agent that I had at the time that some Americano in a little B-movie in Mexico City had fallen out, and could I get down there very quickly and make $5 and do this film. And while I was there in Mexico City, I heard that some guy named David Lynch, I didn't remember the name either, was prepping a big film called Dune. David was having lunch with some folks. I met him there in the commissary. He was very gracious and very nice, and I told him I just loved Dune, and if there was any part in there, I would really be thrilled. And he said, sorry, it's all cast. And I got a call from a different agent now, that there was a part in this movie Dune, and David Lynch wanted me to do it. And I said, I thought it was all cast. And he said, no, some guy pulled out of that. And I got on the phone, called Mexico City, and asked for David, got on the line. And David spoke first. He said, listen, I don't know, I apologize for the way I reacted when I saw you in Churubusco Studios that day. I must have looked really strange, but I thought you were dead. And I said, well, sorry. there I went down to Mexico and met David, and during the first couple of weeks of shooting Dune, he divulged to me that we'd met before. Don't you remember? I was over at your house. I showed the grandmothers. Oh, yeah? Oh, great. Hey, how was it? Did you have a good time? I mean, there were some of us that were sort of out of touch in the 60s and early 70s in Topanga Canyon. We had a good time. We saw important movies, and then we forgot them.
We were supposed to shoot exterior Johnny's broiler. It's all exterior. And it's pouring rain. I mean, it's pouring. I've already called the entire crew. Not only I've called the entire crew, but we have 2 cameras today, which means I have more crew than normal crew. I have stunts people, stunt coordinator and stunt, which means I have more people than normal. Not only, but I have, hot riders, which are parked in it's a very jazzy kind of place. We have hot riders, you name it, and I had it with me. So it was just not an ordinary day, but it was a very expensive day for me. We've already established the other scenes where it has not rained at all. For us to shoot rain exteriors and cut to another scene where it's no rain at all would never match for us. So it was a desperate times.
So you just got to kind of wiggle around, so, like that, so we can really get and see it, a sense of the water. Because there's puddles everywhere, so you got to really be going nutty. Okay, great.
Last night was another brilliance. We were raining, so he had these 2 guys playing with hose, which made all the sense in the world. Only he can come up with this brilliant plan of having 2 guys right in the master frame playing with hose, creating rain.
I'll get it. Hello?
It's me.
Hey, baby.
I can't see you tonight.
Okay.
I have to go somewhere with Mr. Eddie.
Sure.
I think he suspects something. We have to be careful. I miss you.
Certain parts of the film are kind of dark and noir-like, and when I started talking to Angelo about, what feel, it needed, it just jumped into our minds this kind of certain set of instruments, and Angelo started writing, and we came up with this, I hope, pretty modern use of an orchestra.
It's layered and intense.
The orchestra we used is called the Film Symphony Orchestra of Prague, and they have this one studio that they've had there for a bunch of years, but they've updated their equipment. This is a very dark score. It's a kind of a dark movie. But even in its uneasiness and disturbing nature, there's a beauty. And that's what we're looking for. There's just a mood about this place. We just loved walking from the hotel. And you come onto a very quiet street. And you go into this place with these gigantic doors. They must weigh 1,000 pounds each. Everything was kind of muted tones and sepia colors. And the musicians just had all their little place in life. The bass players each had a little hole on the floor where they would just every day put their basses in. These are bass hole marks right here. See, this guy's got, this is like his spot.
No, Angelo.
Wait a minute.
Angelo, that's not it.
Yeah, wait a second.
It was over here.
No, but they're all over the place.
No, I know, but this one I remember was right around in here.
David and I were here in the days of Blue Velvet, which literally goes back 10 years.
I know, but this was more of a real hole. It wasn't just a little dent. Holy smokes. Wait a second. Angelo! You got one? I think, well, maybe this is too far forward. I think
he could have been here.
this was a hole. This was a deep hole.
Classical musicians from this Eastern European school of music, they just get into the kind of things that we like to do, and they perform it in a beautiful way.
A lot of the music here maybe will have to be remixed at some point back in Los Angeles. There's a million different combinations, and we'll get what we have and then, go back and start, finding little homes for them, along the way.
The score consists of many, many components.
Second violin, second violin.
One of the components was recorded in Prague with an orchestra. One of the unique things that David did was to record the orchestra using different miking techniques, basically using a bottle in one case, two lengths of tubes, plastic tubes.
So the sound, comes in and is affected by the tube, and it's gotten some very interesting, distortions on the music.
Let's see how that sounds.
I mean, it's very trebly, of course, and
yeah,
high end.
Play it louder.
Because it's the original organic recordings, they hang in quite nicely with the orchestra, so you can segue in and out of these sounds, and it feels as if the orchestra just disappears into a weird space and comes back again. And so we use it as a color.
John Ross is, the best digital thinker I've ever run across. He knows everything about every wire and everything like this, plus he comes from music mixing, and really has a total grasp of the whole digital, world.
There's a certain amount of artistic accident and a lot of design involved in this process. David goes through, and when he sees the sound, he reacts to the picture in real time.
And that's a beautiful spot there. The only thing I'd say that you know, is like on that one where I said it was a beautiful spot, if you just get one of those cracks to kind of peep through, one of the dry skull cracks, that'd be really nice. Okay. When you see your picture, you start building sounds that amplify a mood that's already started. And then when all the elements are together, the thing jumps and it becomes sometimes magical. Well, that was great. The white flare goes.
Okay, so you don't want any of that white flash stuff earlier on, like in here?
Mary took over from Deepak when we hit post-production.
He, you know, works with people with an open mind, but, you know, with a complete confidence that he knows what he wants.
Yeah, I think what it is that side view, then go to the front view, then go to the side view, then go to the front view, something like that.
I mean, we're in this room, you know, long hours every day, 6 days a week. You know, it's just very intense, but it's a blast. Everybody has fun when they work with David. They feel like they're part of an artistic endeavor and that they really are genuinely part of it. I have a first assistant editor, a second assistant editor, and an apprentice, and then a post-production supervisor. And we also have a great intern, a crazy girl from England. And the production crew, the post-production crew, everybody's just crazy about working with him. We all get spoiled. I haven't worked with anybody else since Blue Velvet.
Okay. The beautiful thing is that there's a tremendous amount of loyalty here that flows both ways. It's become a really tight-knit group. When we come to work on these things, even after many of us will go off to another show or another movie, and we join up again, and right away everything clicks again. It's really easy for us, and the catalyst, of course, is David, which it's really nice for us.
He doesn't make films based on the way films are. He makes films based on the way he experiences things, you know? And that's why it's always so exciting to see what he's going to come up with next.
It's great when somebody breaks a rule and says, you know what, there don't have to be any answers to this. You don't have to have a fourth wall. You don't have to have any boundaries. You don't have to have any answers. You don't have to answer anybody.
When someone asks me what the movie is about, I can only say that it's mysterious, it's violent, it's erotic, perplexing, it's labyrinthian. Find your lost highway, it's aptly named.
Holy smokes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap.
Be true to the ideas and let them talk to you, and worry about, you know, every little frame that's, you know, you're making. And if you don't have the money, you can find another way to get that exact same, you know, thing. So you don't have to compromise in that way, you know, for the final thing. You can find a way.
He's still one of the few artists we have making films in the whole world. He owes it to himself, and he owes it to our world, the world of cinema, to make David Lynch films.